In the deserts of Judah, where silence meets the wind, a boy watched over his father's sheep, completely unaware that destiny had already chosen him. His name was David. He would become a warrior, a poet, a sinner, and a king. But who was he really? And what was the secret that made him known as a man after God's own heart? Join us as we explore the untold story of one of history's most compelling figures. David was the youngest of 8 sons, born to Jesse of Bethlehem. He was often overlooked, considered ordinary, and sometimes even forgotten. While his older, taller brothers stood proudly in King Saul's army, David was left behind to tend the sheep. But it was in those lonely, sun-scorched fields that his true character was forged. He learned courage by defending his flock from lions and bears, armed with nothing but a staff and a sling. And in the profound quiet of the desert nights, he learned faith, composing and singing psalms of praise beneath a canopy of brilliant stars. The famous words, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," were not penned in the comfort of a palace. They were born from the heart of a young man who knew what it meant to trust God completely in the wilderness. Suddenly, the nation of Israel faced a terrifying threat. A Philistine giant named Goliath, a champion of fearsome reputation, stood day after day, mocking Israel and its God. Paralyzed by fear, not a single soldier in King Saul's army dared to face him. Then, a young shepherd boy arrived at the camp, bringing supplies for his brothers. He heard the giant's taunts and was filled not with fear, but with righteous anger. Armed not with a king's armor or a warrior's sword, but with an unshakable faith in God, David stepped forward. He picked up 5 smooth stones from a brook. He took his simple sling. With the eyes of 2 armies upon him, there was a moment of intense silence, a single heartbeat in time. And then, the giant fell. Israel erupted in cheers. King Saul smiled, impressed by the boy's courage. But as David's fame grew, a dark shadow of envy began to creep into the king's heart, a jealousy that would change both their lives forever. David's stunning victory made him a hero to the people. Everywhere he went, songs of celebration followed. But those songs became a source of poison in King Saul's ears. "Saul has slain his thousands," the people sang, "but David his tens of thousands." Saul's admiration curdled into a murderous obsession. He began to hunt David relentlessly, chasing him through caves, deserts, and the desolate wilderness. Yet, through it all, David showed remarkable restraint. He refused to harm God's anointed king, even when he had the perfect opportunity. On 2 separate occasions, he found Saul vulnerable and defenseless, yet he chose to spare his life. This incredible act of self-control and unwavering faith would come to define David's character far more than any battlefield victory. It was a testament to his deep-seated belief that justice and vengeance belonged to God alone. Amidst this turmoil and persecution, David found an unlikely and powerful ally, Jonathan, King Saul's own son. The bond between them was immediate and profound. Jonathan loved David as he loved his own soul, their friendship transcending the bitter politics and royal power struggles that surrounded them. Theirs was a sacred brotherhood, sealed by a covenant of loyalty and selfless sacrifice. Jonathan repeatedly risked his own life to protect David from his father's rage. When Saul and Jonathan eventually fell in battle, David's grief was immense. He didn't rejoice over the death of his enemy. Instead, he mourned deeply for the king who had hunted him, and for the dear friend he had lost, composing a beautiful lament that echoes with sorrow, "How the mighty have fallen." After years on the run, David's time finally came. He was anointed king, first over his own tribe of Judah, and then over all of Israel. His reign marked a golden age for the nation. He led his armies to conquer the seemingly impregnable fortress of Jerusalem, transforming it into his capital, the city of David. One of his greatest acts was bringing the Ark of the Covenant, the sacred symbol of God's presence, into his new city. Overjoyed, David shed his royal robes and danced before the ark with uninhibited joy and celebration. Under his leadership, Israel flourished. The kingdom was unified, strong, and prosperous. It seemed as though nothing could go wrong. But even at the height of his power, a moment of weakness, a single glance, would lead him down a path of temptation and tragedy. One evening, from the rooftop of his palace, David saw a beautiful woman, Bathsheba, bathing. In that moment, The king who had conquered giants and armies was overcome by his own desire. That desire led to sin. To hide his transgression, sin led to deceit. And when deceit wasn't enough, it spiraled into the ultimate betrayal, murder. David arranged for Bathsheba's honorable husband, Uriah, a loyal soldier in his own army, to be sent to the front lines of a battle where he was certain to be killed. David thought his secret was safely buried. But then the prophet Nathan came before him, telling a simple story about a rich man who stole a poor man's only lamb. When David's anger flared at the injustice, Nathan pointed his finger and declared, "You are the man." The weight of his sin crashed down upon David. He fell to his knees, broken, and wept in repentance. It was from this place of profound sorrow that Psalm 51 was born, a timeless cry for mercy. "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." Though David was forgiven, the consequences of his actions were severe. The prophet Nathan had warned him that the sword would never depart from his house, and this dark prophecy proved true. His family life was shattered by tragedy. His son Amnon committed a terrible crime, bringing shame and division into the household. This was followed by the rebellion of another son, the charismatic and handsome Absalom, who stole the hearts of the people and declared himself king. He was a king betrayed, a father heartbroken. Yet, even in the depths of his pain and sorrow, David continued to write. He poured his anguish and his unwavering trust in God into psalms that continue to bring comfort and healing to souls thousands of years later, with words like, "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." As the years passed, David grew old and weary. From his palace, he could look out upon the magnificent city he had built, a symbol of his life's work. He had dreamed of building a grand temple for God, a permanent home for the Ark of the Covenant. But that task would not be his to complete. Instead, he gathered the materials and prepared the way for his son, Solomon, to fulfill that vision. Before he passed, he crowned Solomon as the new king, entrusting the future of the kingdom into his hands. With his final breaths, David, the shepherd boy, the giant slayer, the king, returned to what he knew best, praise. He whispered his last words, a final testimony to the God he had served his entire life. "The Spirit of the Lord spoke by me, and his word was on my tongue." So what is the enduring legacy of King David? His story is not one of perfection. Far from it. He failed as a father. He sinned grievously as a man. But his story is ultimately one of radical redemption. What made him a man after God's own heart wasn't his flawlessness, but his relentless pursuit of God even after his greatest failures. His heart was consistently and humbly turned toward repentance and worship. He loved God deeply, passionately, and authentically. And in a final, beautiful twist of history, it was from his royal bloodline that the Messiah, Jesus Christ, would be born, who is called the Son of David. The humble shepherd boy who became a king gave way to the lineage of the King of Kings. David's life teaches us that the greatest battles we face are not fought on fields with swords and shields, but within the landscape of our own souls. And the greatest victory we can ever achieve is not over an enemy, but the one found in forgiveness, both receiving it and giving it. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of King David. If you found this story inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history, faith, and the figures who shaped our world. Until next time, stay curious.